Greg grabs a present at a Christmas party and searches for Carly, his colleague. He has somehow managed to be her secret Santa at their office's annual Christmas party for 3 years in a row. Every year, he gives her the same type of mug for drinking tea and she keeps those in her office. Carly is still working on her desk when she is called to her boss Sela's office. He breaks the news that one of the oldest employees of the company is retiring, which has left an opening for the position of Director of Quality Control. Carly had been under the retired employee's supervision, so it's natural for her to assume that she'll be his replacement. But what she finds out is that her experience will come in handy in training the retired employee's replacement. A young, chipper man enters the office and Silas introduces him as his son and the new Director of Quality Control. Carly hesitantly shakes hands with this guy named Wyatt, who doesn't seem to know anything about the position he is about to fill. Carly later rants about this to her best friend, Jamie, and complains that a guy who knows nothing about his job or company is now her boss. Jamie points out that Carly has complained about this job many times, so she shouldn't be so bothered about not getting the promotion. Jamie is a sommelier herself and therefore is very satisfied with her job. She values Carly's fashion sketches way more than she does herself. Jamie thinks that Carly should be working on fashion shows and red carpets, instead of pushing out generic t-shirts for corporate merchandising. Too bad that Carly's supportive friend is now leaving her to move to Italy. Carly will miss Jamie, but she wishes for her to be the happiest and most successful in her career. Jamie makes Carly promise that she will make a change in her life this year. So Carly assures her friend that this year she'll quit her boring job, make new friends, follow her dreams, and say yes to adventures. Jamie comes up with the idea of making a list containing their resolutions for the next year, and Carly promises to check all the things off her list. That night, Carly flips through the designs on her sketchbook and makes her resolutions list. She tears out the page with the list and places it on her bedside table. Almost a year passes by, and that list on Carly's bedside ends up under a pile of magazines. It's November 29th and Carly has forgotten that the list even existed, let alone completed any of the things on her list. She wakes herself up by giving herself a pep talk to remain patient and not yell at her silly new boss. On her way to work, Carly has brief but friendly interactions with Millie and Hank, who are both side characters in her life. When she gets to the office, she asks Greg if he has seen Wyatt around, but no one knows where he is. Wyatt is in fact fast asleep in his bed until his maid wakes him up for work. He gets out of bed slowly and without any stress. His butler, Vincent, presents him with a breakfast that seems to be made for a toddler, and Wyatt loves it. He calls out to his maid Gertie, who is busy putting up Christmas decorations all around the house. He finally leaves for work in his car driven by his chauffeur, Charlie. Meanwhile, Carly catches up with Jamie on the phone while she is at work. Jamie is going to come back to New York for the holidays and she's excited to see how far Carly is along her list. She can't wait to hear about all the changes Carly has made in her life and see what resolutions she has left. Carly lies to Jamie and plays along until she notices Wyatt, finally walking in from the elevator. Carly hangs up and follows him to remind him that he needs to work on the annual reports, which his dad prefers to have on time. Wyatt asks if Carly can do that, and he can just get away by signing on to it. Carly doesn't approve of this, but he is way too distracted to take note of her protests. Wyatt leaves the office to go on a lunch meeting and Carly is left behind with all the work, like always. Wyatt confides in his friend Brad at lunch about how his dad also gave him this job to keep an eye on him while remaining his usual distancing self. Brad and his wife, Kendra, both worry often about Wyatt, the fond uncle of their beloved daughter Olivia. Wyatt misses her, so Brad invites him to visit, because it'll be nice for Olivia to be closer to her godfather. Brad proposes that maybe Wyatt needs a change and he can always get that by visiting and staying over with him and his family. When Carly gets home that evening, her roommate, Millie, is out on a date. Carly takes a long hard look at her unfinished designs and goes through old, cherished belongings from her young age. She pulls out her resolution list again and goes through all the wishes she planned to fulfill this year. She reprimands herself for even believing that she could be an outgoing, fun, and relaxed person. The next day, she scrolls through Jamie's Instagram and feels happy that at least someone is living life to the fullest and completing all their resolutions. The phone rings and there is an upset customer on the other end, who is complaining about her order. Carly feels frustrated after taking the heat for a mistake her company made. She goes to Wyatt with one of the recent t-shirts they made. She easily rips it into pieces in front of him, to show him how wrong the stitching is of the recent batch of t-shirts that their company sold. This is because these shirts were made by a new factory, as all their regular ones are at full capacity due to the holiday season. All of this could have been avoided if Wyatt had simply read the inspection report, but he didn't do it because he found it too boring. Carly tries to knock some sense into him about the consequences this would have on the company. She's not wrong because Silas takes the heat in the next business meeting and their company has to give out full refunds. The company's client demands to know who the person at fault is and Silas tries to change the subject. but she blames the quality control department nevertheless. Wyatt owns up to his position and accepts this mistake when Carly remembers her promise to Jamie to make a change. She speaks up that all of this was her fault, which is shocking for Wyatt, and he tries to stop her along with Silas. But she happily takes the fall and holds herself accountable for a mistake she didn't make in the first place. Later that evening, Wyatt finds Silas in his office and they both agree on how the company lost one of its best employees in the form of Carly today. Silas knows that it's Wyatt's fault but still tries to make him understand that he can actually be good at this job if he begins to take it more seriously. All Silas has done in his life is try to be a good role model for Wyatt and set a good example to make up for his wife's absence. He couldn't have fired Wyatt today because he'd be completely lost without the family money. Silas is done with Wyatt's childish antics. He officially cuts Wyatt off from his trust fund, credit cards, and his luxurious life until he proves that he can take his job seriously. If he doesn't pull himself together by the end of the year, he'll be cut off for good. Wyatt finds himself in a pickle now, because that's not how he pictured his Christmas to be. Carly gets assurance from Marie that being unemployed for the holidays is the sanest thing she has ever done. She leaves for an event after telling Carly how proud she is of her. She also comments on how Carly's social life can also be as active and happening as hers, if she made a few more adventurous life changes. The doorbell rings and Carly is surprised to see Wyatt at her doorstep. He lets himself in and inquires why she took the fall for him. Carly explains that it was for herself because she meant to quit for a long time. She brings up her list of resolutions and how she started on it too late. Wyatt reminds her that she still has the month of December to complete her list, but she finds it impossible. Wyatt points out that Carly will never miss a deadline and explains his situation in response to her curiosity. He lives off of his trust fund, which is controlled by his dad, so he has to put up with his demands. He thanks her one last time and expresses that he plans to return the favor by giving her a great severance package. She is about to see him out when he mentions his adventurous plans for the night. This gives Carly the idea to join Wyatt to the party, but he knows that she won't be able to handle it. Carly reminds him that he owes her and promises not to embarrass him, after which, he lets her tag along. The next morning, Carly is awakened by the glimpses of the wild night she had in the club with Wyatt. She thinks that it is all just a dream until she finds confetti under the sheets in her bed. She later meets up with her mom, who manages a toy drive for Christmas. When the subject of work comes up, Carly chickens out of telling her mother about her quitting. Her mother teaches her that Christmas is all about gratitude. But Carly's heart yearns for more as she stops by a boutique. Meanwhile, Wyatt wakes up with a plastic snowman in his bed, which shows the crazy night he had too. He doesn't get his usual perks from the house help when he comes out of his room this morning. Wyatt desperately needs caffeine, but discovers that Vincent and Gertie have been forbidden to serve him. So, he attempts to make himself a latte but fails miserably. Carly comes to Wyatt's house and is greeted by Gertie. Wyatt welcomes her in, and she witnesses the decorating company putting Christmas decor in the huge mansion that he lives in. He has never decorated his house with his dad and doesn't see a point of it when he can just pay someone to do it for him. Carly picks up some cute homemade ornaments out of a box, but Wyatt takes them away from her hands because they weren't meant to be here. Wyatt instructs Gertie to take that box back into storage while Carly follows him to the kitchen. He struggles with the coffee machine while she shows him the checklist she made out of her resolutions list. Wyatt mocks the list as it looks more like chores than resolutions, but Carly is proud of herself for completing 7 items already from her list. She's here to enlist his help with completing the rest of her resolutions because she needs someone to hold her responsible. She wants him to be involved because he puts himself out there and is a risk taker. Last night's experience taught her that he'll be helpful in making up for the year of fun she missed out on. Wyatt can't be much use to her because he has his own problems to deal with, as he is just about to humble himself before his father. Carly makes his coffee and proposes the idea of her helping him to be more independent, in exchange for him helping with her checklist. He loves the coffee and accepts her offer. They begin with Carly's wish to run the Christmas 5-kilometer marathon, and she immediately starts her training. But her lungs give out after running past just a few blocks and she collapses on a bunch of Christmas trees because she loves their smell. Wyatt takes a sniff too, and this reminds him of his mom who passed away 8 years ago. Carly tries to resume running after a while, but her first resolution is off to a rocky start. Wyatt drags her home because she has a muscle cramp while Millie is baking in the kitchen. Wyatt goes through a pile of her clothes and decides to donate most of them, even though she insists on keeping them. He lets her keep an ugly little sweater because it was the first sewing project she did with her mom. This brings them to check one resolution off Carly's list, which is to clean out her closet. He examines her leg and massages it in a way that brings her great relief. He comments on how they need to review her water, fruit, and vegetable intake as he takes pride in his fitness and physical health. They get to talking and Carly catches him up on the promise she made to Jamie. She doesn't want to disappoint her best friend and wants to prove to herself that she'll no longer postpone her dreams. She shows him her design sketchbook and expresses her wish to be a fashion designer. He is impressed by her designs and suggests she apply for a job as a fashion assistant. She elaborates that it's not so simple. Her sewing is just above average and she's out of practice. He notices that the knot in her leg might not be so easy to heal after all because she might have pulled her hamstring. He fixes her cramp and Carly almost feels like she just had a moment with her new life coach and former boss. On December 6th, Carly wakes Wyatt up at 7 a.m. sharp in a not-so-gentle way. The first step in his independence is to get him a job, but other employers won't let him sleep until noon. So from now onwards, he'll wake up at 7 every morning. He drinks the coffee she made for him and is about to call a cab to go to work when she reminds him that he's trying to save money. She gives him a Metro card that he'll use to get to work. He also adds to her list a new goal, which is to upgrade her sewing skills, which would be done with Gertie's help. When Wyatt makes it to work early in the morning, Silas is pleasantly surprised. On the other hand, Gertie overlooks Carly during her stitching lessons. Wyatt is on the phone with Brad and recalls the events of the last few days with him and Kendra. They invite him to their home in Jackson Heights for their traditional family dinner. Kendra extends the invitation to Carly as well, because she considers her to be Wyatt's new girlfriend, but he quickly corrects her. They don't believe him at all and look forward to seeing them both next week. On December 10th, Wyatt attends the wrap party at Carly's house. This is when Carly clarifies that this wrap party is about wrapping presents, instead of wrapping up some Broadway production. She introduces Wyatt to the guests, who are members of Millie's Bridge Club, and offers to help Carly's mom with her toy drive. Carly's mom identifies Wyatt as the one who stole her daughter's promotion, but Wyatt doesn't shy away from the awkwardness. He is about to out her for being fired, until she lies that the company has appointed her and Wyatt to work as a team. Wyatt cracks jokes with the guests in the living room while Carly's mom mistakes him for her daughter's crush in the kitchen. Carly denies this and is about to come clean about her quitting the job, when Wyatt walks over to them. He admits that he's having fun, even though he came here as her friendship wingman. However, he does find it strange that she's looking for friends and people much older than her. Carly admits that it's complicated to make friends as an adult, and confides in him about why she hasn't told her mom about quitting yet. Carly's mom raised her alone and worked 3 jobs. Even then, she'll always make Christmas special for Carly. Carly appreciates all the sacrifices her mom has made for her and wanted to pay her back with her steady job. Now she finds it selfish of her to throw that job away for a childhood dream. Wyatt insinuates that she can be grateful while also wanting more out of her life, which is surprisingly wise. They go out to find Carly and some friends. Wyatt learns that Carly struggles with letting people in her life because her dad left when she was 8. Wyatt resonates with her pain of feeling the absence of a parent, and they officially become friends. On December 14th, Carly and Wyatt check out a loft for Wyatt to get his own place to live, in his journey of being independent. Carly convinces him to settle on a place and the real estate mistakes them for a couple. They take advantage of that because being a couple increases their chances of getting this place. They request the real estate agent to speed up the application process so that Wyatt can move in before Christmas. On December 17th, Wyatt smiles at a text from Brad, reminding him to come over with Carly for their family dinner. Meanwhile, Carly is in the kitchen preparing to complete another one of her resolutions, which is to make her grandma's famous recipe. She is used to making cookies and gingerbread every year, but this recipe requires 2 people. So they spend the day baking, which is not only observed by Vincent and Gertie, but Silas too. That evening, they eat the cake they baked together and talk about their childhoods. Wyatt went to Harvard and always wanted to impress Silas, who was his idol. But he was still in college when his mom got sick, and that's when he dropped out. He thought that life's too short to be vying for his father's approval. But Carly believes that his relationship with Silas can still be salvaged. She has acquired the box from Gertie that Wyatt was evasive about earlier. Wyatt recalls that this box has the ornaments his family used to make every year together for their favorite Christmas tradition. Each decoration in that box is tied to a memory of Wyatt's mom, but the tradition stopped since her passing. Wyatt appreciates Carly's effort, but he doesn't want to go down that path, so he shuts the box close. The next day, Carly practices her runs in Central Park with Wyatt. To help her run faster, he pays some kids to hit Carly with snowballs if she stops during her run. This helps her significant progress, even if it's at the expense of being chased by a bunch of kids. Jamie finally makes it to New York a week earlier than expected, because she wanted to surprise Carly. They catch up as they walk to Carly's apartment, and she recalls the incident of her getting fired as she steps into her apartment. What she didn't know was that her mom was in the apartment and overheard her. She's clearly upset and leaves, despite Carly's efforts to make her stay. At work, Silas witnesses Wyatt take initiative and be the boss he was always meant to be. Wyatt has produced great results, but nothing has been mended in his relationship with his father. Wyatt calls Carly and tells her to meet him in Queens in 2 hours. She has to wear Christmas colors and meet him at a church in Queens. She can even bring Jamie, and this is an adventure she should say yes to, in order to check one thing off her list. Carly and Jamie join Wyatt and Brad's family for a sing and stroll activity in Queens. After the caroling, Carly and Jamie sit down with Kendra, who enlightens them on how the rich boy attitude Wyatt isn't the real Wyatt. He hid behind this identity after his mom's passing. Both Wyatt and Carly's friends can see very visible positive changes in them. Wyatt picks out a children's book for Carly to read out to neighborhood kids. This will also complete her resolution of finishing a book, and she does it even though her father used to read this story to her. Wyatt also gets the application for his apartment approved. Wyatt later shares the news of him getting his own place with Silas, who accepts that there is something special about one's first apartment. He also admires Wyatt for the thorough report he submitted at work. 2 days before Christmas, Carly visits Wyatt's new apartment with a housewarming gift that's a coffee maker. She has also brought decorations with Gertie for them to put up all around Wyatt's new house. Together, they turn Wyatt's house into a home. She even manages to convince him to put up his mother's ornaments and revive a tradition that died with her. On the other hand, Carly's mom is still not talking to her and she feels bad for disappointing her. Wyatt consoles her that she'll come around and go through the resolution list. She's about to finish it soon and Wyatt has been a huge help. They're gazing into each other's eyes when Silas stops by, because Carly gave him the new address. Wyatt and Silas begin to bond over the fond memories associated with the homemade ornaments, which is when Carly takes her leave. When she comes home, she finds her mom waiting for her. They make up because Carly's mom didn't make all those sacrifices just for her daughter to grow up to be unfulfilled and uninspired. Carly runs her 5-kilometer marathon a day before Christmas while Wyatt cheers her on. She pushes herself and ends up winning the race, which causes her to immediately jump into Wyatt's arms in celebration. This concludes one more thing off her list and she moves on to the next when she takes pictures of her dress to send it to designers. Millie and Jamie pester her about the apparent feelings Wyatt has for her and she admits that they're not one-sided. Jamie accidentally burns Carly's dress during this discussion and now this wish will remain unfulfilled. Wyatt gives Carly a gold medal for winning the 5K and asks her out to an event. She can't come because she has to be the Santa at her mom's toy drive. She is about to give up on her resolution list because of the dress mishap, and she also misses her stable job now. Wyatt sits down with Silas before heading to his event and learns that Silas will let him have his old life. He's demonstrated responsibility in the last few days and Silas would like him to inherit the company someday. Wyatt informs him that he'll quit to get his own job and addresses his issues with Silas. This leads to their reconciliation, and Wyatt rushes to Carly because he can't let her go back to her old life now. He shows up as Santa to the toy drive and they connect on a deeper level, because of the new and improved versions of themselves they've become. Wyatt throws a brilliant party at Silas' house on New Year's Eve, where Carly shows up in the dress she designed herself. She sent out her portfolio to all designers and the last wish left is to say yes to an adventure. She completes this by kissing Wyatt as the clock strikes 12, and a new year full of marvelous adventures begins.